Hello, bonjour, and welcome to your new Bon Private Wines video. After browsing and learning about the wines from Australia and New Zealand over the past couple of weeks, it's time to get practical. Yes, with a glass of wine, it's the best part of being a wine enthusiast, right? When you actually get to taste the wines, of course. So today I'm going to give you an overview of your wine club selection of wines that you have or will receive very shortly, so you know exactly what to expect from those bottles, whether you should and could store them for a little while, or whether you have to drink them now, what food to pair them with. And of course, as always with the Bon Wine Club, you not only get the wines but also a sense of their backstory as well, a sense of where those wines come from and who made them. As always, we have 6 wines with quite a nice variety of styles, so we're going to be going by pairs of wines, pretty much by style, and breaking things down into 3 chapters as always, so you get an understanding, a digestible understanding of what each wine is all about. We're going to start with the cool climate wines, the fresh and zingy ones, before tasting 2 Australian Shiraz made from the iconic grape from Australia, the Shiraz, and then go to 2 Bordeaux styles wines made from Bordeaux grapes in Australia, Cabernet Sauvignon Merlot if you're following, and let's just go and dig right into it. Let's go. As we saw last week, New Zealand has a much cooler climate than Australia, generally speaking, being this isolated island in the middle of the rather cold South Pacific Ocean. And NZ's iconic grape is, as we've seen, Sauvignon Blanc, that they make in an extremely pungent and powerful style. If you've never tried a Kiwi Sauvignon Blanc, well, here's definitely your chance to experience for yourself the really unique taste that they have with the very nice example that we've selected for you. So we talked about the region of Marlborough in New Zealand. This wine comes from, this very wine is made in Marlborough. This is the iconic Kiwi wine region. There are many large-scale wineries in New Zealand. This very much is a small human-scale operation, the creation of one woman and one man, Brian and Nicola Bicknell, who, after traveling the world making wine in Hungary, France, Chile, around the world, they settled in Marlborough in the 1990s to, guess what? Make wine. What's great in my Sauvignon Blanc is that it's a blend of 7 different small vineyards, each adding their own characteristics for a more complete whole. All grapes are harvested by hand, which is not very common in New Zealand. It's generally machine harvested there. Some of the wines from some vineyards were fermented in oak barrels, while others were fermented in tanks. 18% was fermented using natural wild yeast that adds a little touch to the blend. So Brian, the winemaker, used different components to craft this blend, like an artist using different colors and techniques. When you'll be tasting Mahi Sauvignon Blanc, you'll probably be surprised by the sheer intensity of the aromas. Pay particular attention to the grapefruit, lemon, and importantly the passion fruit characters to the smell in particular. So much passion fruit jumping out of the glass, it's incredible. The wine is certainly dry with a very crisp and zingy acidity that makes me salivate, and it will make you salivate. This very vibrant, crisp acidity that we love in Sauvignon Blanc. So this is a crisp, refreshing white wine, extremely fruity with loads of citrus and white peach flavors. If you pay close attention, you will notice that it's also very textural. It's oily and rich with layers of yeasty flavors. So a white that's easy to enjoy simply on its own as an aperitif with appetizers or with salad, entrees of course, or even more obvious seafood dish or fish. But that's also your perfect outdoor wine on a picnic or a barbecue in a typical Kiwi fashion, very versatile wine because it's got so much flavor that it's going to withstand being paired with powerful dishes as well. This is a wine to drink now, just to enjoy its freshness and its vibrancy while it's young, but with my personal experience I can also tell you that Sauvignon Blancs from New Zealand can age perfectly well for 3 to 5 years, even more if you feel like it. It'll only get better, it'll tame down a little bit the vibrancy, but it might get a little more subtle as well. But let's move on to our Pinot Noir wine from Australia. So this wine is made in a rare, cool climate area in Australia. Not many cool climate areas in Australia. And this area is particularly suitable for making quality Pinot Noir wines. We are in what's called the Yarra Valley, just outside of the famous culinary and cultural city of Melbourne in Victoria, such a vibrant city. Helen and Joey Estate was founded by Helen Xu and husband Joey, a family business. So this is a Pinot Noir made in the traditional Burgundy style fashion. Small batches of wines punched down by hand in open tank fermenters and aged in oak barrels, about 10% new. This Leila Pinot Noir, that's the name of the cuvée, is very much in a light and playful style. You will get those really vibrant notes of sour cherry that is so typical of good quality Pinot Noir wine and of cool climate as well. It's not about the rich red jammy berries, but rather acidic red berries in here. So when you taste this wine, you will really taste and smell the vibrant notes of raspberry and sour cherry, very spicy and a little meaty as well. So very fresh and lifted from all that fruitiness that explodes, but it's also very peppery. When you taste it, pay close attention to the finish in particular and how it tastes toward the end of the tasting. And you'll probably notice that it's got more weight and more presence than you may think if you only focus on the fruitiness. It's actually quite long as well. I can still taste it 30 seconds after tasting it. It's quite a complex and a deep wine, in fact. So with this, you want to go with moderately flavored dishes, more like the white meats, like a creamy chicken, and keep the bigger reds that we're going to be exploring in a second, the powerful reds for the meats and the steaks. Go with lighter dishes here. Some people prefer red wine and never know what to drink with fish. This would actually be the perfect opportunity to try a light Pinot on a white fish, for example. And much like the Sauvignon Blanc we talked about before, I don't think there's much point cellaring this wine, although I'm sure it'll hold very well for 3 to 5 years given it's under screw cap. In particular, if you're not familiar with what is a screw cap, that's those wines that come under screw. In Australia and New Zealand in particular, wines pretty much always come under screw cap, and it's actually a pretty good sign for them. Sometimes some people think it's for more affordable, cheaper wines, the screw cap, but it's definitely not the case in Australia. And this will help actually this Pinot to age really well, harmoniously for 3 to 5 years easily. But let's move on to the wines from the grape that's become almost synonymous, at least on the international scene, with Australia. Shiraz, mate. Let's start with a wine made by this winery that is called Bilgara Estate. So Bilgara is a long-established winery in Australia, founded around the 1930s by Italian immigrants who knew at the time a thing or two about wine coming from Italy. So here we are in southeastern Australia in the state of New South Wales, to be specific. If you know a little bit about your Australian geography, you would know that this is a state where Sydney is as well, but we are very much more inland in this very dry and warm climate that is so typical of Australia. So here you have an archetypical Australian Shiraz, a very vibrant style of Shiraz with extremely powerful but vibrant aromas of red berries in particular. You'll also notice notes of dark cherries. While it was sour cherry with the Pinot Noir, we are on a dark, ripe red cherry now. Really black cherries, and you'll also notice very strong, obvious notes of black pepper. It's fruity but also very spicy. The black pepper is absolutely the signature aroma and flavor of Shiraz. That already sounds really like the perfect wine for a steak, just by smelling on it, because it's spicy and fruity and powerful to start with. But let's dig into what it tastes like. What I like in Bilgara's Shiraz is that it's got the powerful and explosive spiciness that we love from Australia's Shiraz. It's generous and fruity as we love and expect, but it also has some freshness and vibrancy from a good acidity. And I really enjoy as well this clove character, which gives it some savoriness. So some vibrant fruit, but also acidity and a slightly bitter licorice-like background, which will make it perfect to pair with steaks, indeed your meats, because it's got the savouriness but also the spiciness. It's a little bit like a green pepper sauce, so it's just perfect for your steak indeed. It's confirmed by tasting it. That's a wine to enjoy now while it's vibrant and young, but it'll hold well for a couple of years for sure. Now let's dig into 2017 Bremerton Shiraz from the Langhorne Creek, another area, another fantastic, amazing Shiraz. It's made by a small winery operated and owned by two sisters in an area of South Australia that's called the Langhorne Creek. It's a particular area of South Australia to the south of South Australia, so relatively cool climate. South Australia is probably the best area in Australia to grow and make Shiraz wine. And this is very much a small traditional Australian family winemaking operation, run by two women who are simply passionate about winemaking and crafting fine, authentic wines. So it's like an artisanal boutique and family version of an Aussie Shiraz, still very well made. Australians are very precise winemakers, generally speaking, and it shows really well here. You really get the vibrant cherry fruit expression as well, with this typical black pepper from Shiraz. So you'll definitely notice the common varietal style between those two wines. But this Selkirk Shiraz, that's the name of a wine. It's named after a town in Scotland, and I think the grandfathers of those two women was born in that town, hence them naming this wine after this town in Scotland. So there's also a really nice backstory, a lot of feelings going into naming this wine as well. But back to the wine. So you really get a delicious juicy grip to the acidity. There's almost a citrus-like bite to the acidity, which makes you salivate and want to go for more. While the tannins are velvety and smooth, they coat your palate delicately. There are some red berry fruit flavors that explode, so it makes for a very, very pleasing and interesting wine, both quite deep. To be honest, it's quite solid and dense, but it's also just simply satisfying to taste and to experience. I love how you can feel the clay granulous texture in the wine. It's a little bit like there is a sense of clayey texture into this wine, and that's very, very rare to experience. It really shines in wines that are respectful of where they come from, of the terroir, and I really get the feeling from this wine. And often it also comes from people that respect the grapes that they grow and that give a lot of heart to the wine that they make. So really a lovely Shiraz here, one that I think Australians themselves would be happy to find, and they'd probably be jealous of you in the United States that you've been able to buy such an authentic Aussie wine. Really, really excellent. This is a wine that I think you can age a little bit if you want, although it's really, really great to drink now. It's nice and vibrant and shiny, but I think up to 5 years will make it even perhaps more interesting. Obviously with the Shiraz wines, like with the Bordeaux blends we'll talk about in a second, we are with rich, powerfully red wines that you want to pair with flavorsome dishes, the pungent pasta dishes, your grilled meats, a good barbecue, which is pretty much Australians' national dish, and those wines actually perfect with those. They're so salivating, so juicy. But let's dig into what you should expect from those wines made from Bordeaux grapes. Still in Australia, we were more on the Rhone style. If we're talking about France, Rhone style reds with the Shiraz. Let's dig into the Bordeaux blends from Australia. Starting with a wine made by a producer called Balnaves of Coonawarra. The wine is called the Blend. Now the Balnaves family is an old family established in the Coonawarra as early as 1855. This is a family of farmers. They farmed the area for generations and generations, and in the 1970s, 1980s, they slowly, cautiously transitioned from farming to growing vines and making wine. And that's in fact exactly when it was discovered that this particular area of South Australia, that's got a slightly cooler climate as well than most other areas around, which is good for making fine wines. This area called Coonawarra also has a very rare strip of red and iron-rich soils, loads of iron which makes the soil red. the soil, that particular soil is called terra rossa, which is Italian for red earth. Now this type of red soil is really rare, and some red soils are not so good for making wine, but this one has a particular composition on top of the iron that makes the wines that are made there particularly fantastic. And it's a fantastic area for growing Bordeaux grapes in particular. So this particular wine, called the Blend, is a blend indeed of 60% Merlot with 34% Cabernet Sauvignon, so typical Bordeaux blend with a little bit more Merlot, a little bit of Cabernet Franc and a little bit of Petit Verdot. So very much typical traditional Bordeaux blend, mixing 4, sometimes 5, there's only 4 here, but 4 different grape varieties, all from Bordeaux. It's aged in fine grain French oak barrels as well. So again, Bordeaux style, traditional style of making Bordeaux style of wine, Bordeaux style wine 101 made in Australia. What I like in this wine is the smooth and velvety texture that the Merlot brings in particular. Merlot tends to be smoother and softer and rounded than Cabernet Sauvignon. And it also has the balance and the rich texture of a really well thought blend. It's rich and opulent on the palate, it's very textural, it's oily, it's smooth with this generous burst of juicy red cherries and ripe strawberry flavors as well, some nutmeg and toasted hazelnut as well from the oak, so a little bit more powerful and extrovert than Bordeaux would be, but still it's got this je ne sais quoi of elegance as well. But finally, let's dig into the legendary Cabernet Sauvignon by Langmill Winery. This is one of the staple winemaking names in that area, that is effectively the most reputable area, the most reputable name as far as wine regions are concerned in Australia. Barossa Valley is a bit of the Napa Valley of South Australia, if you wish. This is made again respecting the pure traditional winemaking techniques, hand-picked grapes and aged for nearly 2 years in French oak barrels. So this is a careful blend from selected vineyards. This has rich notes of ripe cherry and blackberry. There's a bit of a hint of blackcurrant as well, which is so typical, such the signature of Cabernet Sauvignon. Here it comes with the subtle yet profound influence of oak. It's got notes of dark cocoa and coffee, some dark roasted hazelnut as well. There's a bit of a meaty truffle character in there, a little meaty like a beef stock if you wish. It's sweet and savory at the same time. It's rich, it's generous, it's concentrated, extremely long after you've tasted the wine. You can still taste especially the oaky flavors that are really well integrated, really refined, respecting the fruit character, really well balanced wine. Definitely feels like a young wine with ample potential for aging. This is like a dense, great Bordeaux wine, but with a little more power and generosity, yet it's got this tight and balanced texture that is the signature of a good Cabernet Sauvignon wine, really. So it's got the potential easily to age for 20 years if you feel so inclined. Definitely I'd say this is a wine to taste now to see if you enjoy the style, which I don't see why you wouldn't. And if you like it, stock up on it if you get a chance. This is going to be a fantastic value compared to most California Cabernets. It's got this style that is not dissimilar to California Cabernet, so it'll feel pretty familiar, yet it's got maybe perhaps more elegance and expression than a lot of Cabernets in coming out of California. So definitely a wine to experience and see if you like it for yourself. And that's going to be it for me today in our methodical review of all your Bonner Wine Club selection wines from Australia and New Zealand. I hope you enjoyed the travels and the learning that we've done together over the past few weeks that bring knowledge and enjoyment from that other sunny side of Earth. Far away into the southern hemisphere, so many great memories for me. And more importantly, I hope and I'm sure you'll enjoy those wines. I know those are difficult times, but at least we have some good wines. Enjoy, and I will see you soon in the wonderful world of wine. Cheers! Santé.